Yo,
What's happening with you, man?
what's going on, Jeff?
Sunday night service, baby. Back in
It's
effect.
Sunday
8
night
o'clock.
service, 8 o'clock edition.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
it's
How
eight
you doing?
o'clock edition. Man, I'm good, man. I'm feeling good. I'm well rested. I took a really good nap after church today since the Browns were on, and you know I didn't want
You
to.
you you missed the win.
I did. I caught it. I did catch it on and off. I was checking in on the Steelers score since it wasn't on TV here locally, but we didn't pull it out. Y'all did, so now we're both 1-1. Both one and
Yes, sir.
one.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Uh, I think your win. I think even your losses are more quality, but I don't know, man. Las Vegas bought out last week, so they might have a squad. Who knows?
Yeah,
Who
and they
knows?
won again this week. They won again this
Yeah,
week. So
I mean, you had to say that again like that, but I mean, it's cool. Cool. I mean, it's all right.
it's all good. It's all good.
So.
And so, how's everything else, man? How was service today?
Service was great. You know how great it was, and of course we'll talk about it more. We had to miss last week, so being back in church, man, it feels like when you miss 1 week, it's like you've been out for a month. It's like,
Ooh, yes.
let me preach 5 sermons. Let me just preach everything I've been thinking this week. And another thing,
you get to you be like, all right, just one choir song.
right? This is all me today.
Let me get to the word.
This is all me today. This is the pastor show. No, it was good. Service was great. Blessed, of course. Last week, just want to throw out my thank yous to everybody for making the concert a great event. Outdoors, did well. People came out, red hands threw down. They killed it. Billy did his thing. The young people did their thing. We appreciate everybody. Black Business Market was phenomenal. Super proud of the young lady, Candace Dukes, doing a great job with the Black Business Market. I think their next one is next Saturday. So y'all all go check them out at RVG's in Warren. Okay. And that's a free plug. They ain't even pay for that sponsorship. They ain't even pay for that plug.
See how they do. And watch, everybody gonna be at the Black Business Market. Ain't nobody coming to church.
Anybody coming to church? Anybody coming to church when Black Business Market is going on? You know how it go. Football season's back, Pastor Jeff.
Hey, man, I'm enjoying it, man. Last week was the first time, because I was sick, obviously. I was sick. So last week was the first time I actually laid in bed on Sunday and watched football the entire day. I don't think I've done that since high school, man. And it was phenomenal. I'm like, I don't see why people be missing church.
Right. This is a good idea. We've been missing out all these days.
It was definitely fun though, man. Watching these football teams, and we got some great young talent, man. And I think it's gonna be a great season. And the fans are back. I think that's commendable.
It changes the whole energy. It changes the whole energy of the stadiums. Home field advantage is back.
But you watch it. And it's like, don't nobody got on no mask up in here.
Listen. It's like listen, my wife, and I've seen other people post the same thing. They get anxiety just looking at the crowds.
Right.
They get anxiety like, how are the hospitals not full within 3 days? Like right down the street from these stadiums.
Because it's still hot. Nobody got their shirts on. They sweating, high-fiving one another.
This is gonna be the rest of our life. Everything is gonna be. And it's funny because it's the subject of our show tonight. But everything is gonna be in the context of COVID. It's like, I was at a wedding on Saturday, and it was an outdoor wedding. And by the way, shout out to my little cuz Marvin Logan, who got married. Warren, y'all know Marv. I mean, just wonderful young man. Got married in the Akron area. Dude arrived on a speedboat.
What?
He arrived. The groom arrived. It was on the lake, and we were like in the grass next to a lake. And I'm like, where is Marvin at? By the way, now I wasn't doing it for once in my life. I was just there as family. And I'm like, where is this dude at? And he had like a string quartet, Jeff. No lie, I give the biggest props to him. They started playing the Mission Impossible theme on the violins. And the next thing you know, this speedboat came across the lake. And he was on it in his tuxedo. No, you know what I thought to myself? I said, when I was getting married, we didn't have all this creativity and stuff. Grandma put
That's
them flowers up. Grandma put them flowers on the pews.
and listen, I could sit and watch TikTok all night long about these
Yes.
creative weddings.
We never got. We didn't do nothing. You better walk down that red carpet with the white sheet on liner that hey, you didn't use like the same roll of runner for like 4 different weddings.
And they played the same. Here come, dun, dun,
No. You know good and well it was Ribbon in the Sky. You know everybody was singing Ribbon in the Sky for like 25 years. Then it was Spend My Life. You know I played for a bunch of weddings. It was Spend My Life by Eric Benet. Okay. But anyway, so the joke was supposed to be they passed out fans for outside because we were outside, and thank God because we needed them. They were like these beautiful fans with the programs like ribbons to the fan. And I'm like, look at us here just blowing COVID on each other. We just over here just blowing COVID. Then I see Penn State, the whiteout game, and they got the towels. I'm like, they just throwing COVID in each other's faces. Everything is just COVID at this point. But I'm glad to have football back. It is the greatest pastime ever. It has long surpassed baseball for most people. And you give me between Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Thursday, then you add in some MAC games on Wednesday. Now, here's the sad part, though. My Steelers are probably middling at best. Ohio State ain't looking great. Our local team is 1-5, even though they're a dynamic group of young men. It's just
jump on board, baby.
Listen, never.
Jump on the Cleveland.
Hey, we don't even know what y'all gonna look like while you're talking. Y'all 1-1 too, so it is what it is.
We are. I mean, I think we're gonna end up. You know, we're gonna push it. I mean, we have a lot of great players. Obviously, what's his name? The OBJ, he's still out.
Just let him go, man. Just let him go do what he want to do, man. He doesn't. I knew he wasn't a Cleveland guy from the beginning. He's a big city guy. He wants to be in LA or Miami, or he wants to be in a big city. You know, that's just. I don't care. I don't think he has a passion for the game in Cleveland. Truth be told,
I don't think he got a passion for the game at all. I think he like that money and he like to do what he's doing. But
you about to be Ricky Williams or what's that other guy, Marshawn Lynch? Just smoke it up, call it a day. Yeah, so not much happening in our world. Just it's just getting back in the fall. School year is in full swing, and we just got to make those adjustments. It's the last, it's the last weekend of summer, man. It's the last weekend of summer. And we just gotta make it do what it do. I celebrate 6 years next Sunday at Second Baptist. 6 years. They haven't put me out yet. I haven't gotten a letter or a meeting or my name taken off the door of the office. My keys still work.
Yeah, you come in and doors was locked on you.
The doors is locked with chains on them. Hey, all I know is if I ever have some dissension or some fights, I'm going straight live on Facebook so everybody can see everything. I'm like, y'all see these deacons?
Hey, it was funny. I just gotta throw this in there. I was going somewhere yesterday. I was riding down the street, and I turned the corner. As I turned the corner, it was a old school white rendezvous.
Oh Lord!
I said, look how far these Negroes.
Look how far the Johnsons have come. Hey, I put the old house up on Zillow, and the picture from the site was still with the old car. I said, "Look how far we've come."
The white rendezvous and the white.
The white rendezvous with the broke mirror and the dent on the side.
The white Benz was classic though.
Now the white Benz. Now, Uncle's still driving that. Uncle's still rolling in the white Benz. I want it back. I'm trying to get it back. He charging me more than I gave it to him for. But it's all good. It's all good. Listen, we want to shout out our sponsors. We thank our sponsors for supporting the show. Yes, we have sponsors. We have it. Phillips Care Cleaning Service. They do residential, commercial cleaning. I like the model we came up with. We take care of the mess that causes you stress. But that was too Jesse Jackson for them. So they say, don't waste your time. Let us do it. They do everything you can think of. And I know it because I've used their service and they are amazing. They also do construction, home rehab, painting, carpet cleaning, everything. And again, I've used them and my old rental looks like new now. And so y'all Anybody looking for a house to buy, hit up your boy. While you're at it, hit up Phillips Care Lawn Care Services. They've been in business for over 10 years. They have really come up. We're so proud of our Black-owned businesses. Fernando and the family have made it happen. So check them out. You need to get them leaves up and you don't want to do it. Full well, you ain't about to rake them leaves up. Call 330-219-7916 or check out Phillips Care LLC on Facebook and tell them Religiously Incorrect sent you. And we'll be so glad to be a referral for their business. Hey, everybody.
Or you could do just like I do and just say, the snow gonna cover that.
I think Mike's coming in. No, he's not. You said, what would you say, Jeff?
You do like I do and say, the snow gonna cover those leaves up.
God knows how to take care of his creation. Just do whatever Adam did. Adam didn't have no rake.
Use the leaf blower and blow them into your next door neighbor.
Listen, hey, I tried that. He was already blowing them into mine. He was already beating me to it at night. All right, y'all. Our show is entitled tonight, Push to the Vax. Push to the Vax. And you can just live with that title, Pastor Jeff.
What?
You can just live with that title. Hey, I don't know. It's like a Seinfeld joint. But we are talking COVID vaccines. We hit this subject several times since the pandemic started. But daggone it, we are 18 months into it, and here we are, practically worse off than before. Numbers are up. Ohio, I think, has posted like the second highest numbers since the pandemic started, which is insane because we were so far down and doing so well. And, it's just, there it is. It was in the Associated Press today. Cases skyrocket in Ohio, and they have increased more than 25 times than what they were 2 months ago. Absolutely amazing and alarming. And let's just be transparent from the front. Both of our households got hit just in the last few weeks. Both of our households got hit. And both of our families are vaxxed.
Absolutely. Yep.
Both of our families are vaxxed. We're being transparent. I'm not, I don't care if I am. I'm telling my medical information. We're vaxxed. And, but thankfully, our symptoms were mild. And we've all, from what I understand, recovered. Jeff, y'all doing all right? You ain't got like a third ear or nothing like that?
We all here. Everybody here. I got all my toes and all my fingers.
Got all your toes. Gotcha. Kids are good.
Here.
But let's be clear. It shut us down. It shut our households down. It took us from work. It took us from church. It caused us to fear for our children. We had to worry about our children, and we understand that things are skyrocketing in schools and daycares and other spaces where children cannot be vaccinated. So we decided that instead of speculating and listening to any more Facebook experts and YouTube conspiracy theorists, any more memes and shares, how about we just go to somebody that actually knows what they're talking about? How about we just talk to somebody who actually does this for a living and couldn't find anybody better than the one and only Dr. Tonia Farmer-Pitts. Tonia Farmer-Pitts, and she is one of the resident doctors of the Mahoning Valley, has done an amazing job in her work of not just medical care and what she does, but informing the public and advocating for those things that our community needs to know. And I'm so proud. She's a part of Second Baptist, her and her husband, Casey, and children. And we're so proud of them, just having them in our community. They're not natives of our area, but they came to our area, and God help me, we're gonna lock the door so they can't leave our area because we don't get them like that.
Nobody else to leave.
Hey, we gonna get that one guard from Life, like at the gate, watching them. They try to make a run for the field.
Mr. Boss Man said you can't leave, Miss Pitts. Mr. Boss Man said.
Y'all, welcome to Religiously Incorrect, Dr. Tonia Farmer-Pitts. Everybody give it up. Give some virtual hands for our guest today.
Hi, how are you? How are you, Pastor Todd and Pastor Jeff?
We're good. We're good. Thank you for being with us.
Oh, thank you for having me. Can I just say I have been backstage cracking up.
That's what we do. That's what we do. That's why the show comes on at Sunday nights, Religiously Incorrect. I promise this is a non-alcoholic drink. We are crazy by nature.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. Thank you
No,
so
it's
much.
our pleasure. We feel that this is not only a necessary conversation, it can be informative and still be entertaining at the same time. But,
Absolutely.
we've talked and speculated, and I think that this show has sought to do what I think other responsible people, and we're not really huge. I mean, we do have millions of viewers, but uh, I think we've sought to be responsible with the information, that we don't dive too far into speculation and rumor mongering. A lot of far more popular shows, blogs, mainstream, or whatever you want to call cable news networks, even radio talk shows. The stuff that's been out there has just been amazing. And I was just reading an article the other day of several, in particular conservative, no disrespect to anybody, but conservative anti-vax uh, radio hosts who lost their life.
Yep.
One was a Phil Valentine from Tennessee, whose family stated before he passed that he regretted the positions he took, and that he wished he had not fed into that, as a position, and, knowing obviously it goes along the party lines and all that stuff, that he hadn't fed into that. And he ended up dying, and several others have as well. So we wanted to bring you on to talk about this issue. We are in the midst of a resurgence that may very well surpass what we originally had when this thing first jumped off, and we didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know to wear masks, not to wear masks. The vaccine was just a dream. We were hoping to get it. Everything was shut down. We couldn't get my hair cut. I was looking like Teen Wolf out here teaching Bible study from my office.
Casey went bald during the time. He went
He went,
bald. He
right,
just
yeah,
he
right.
said, forget it.
He
He
said,
just shaved
forget
it
it.
all off and he ain't went back.
No help. But first of all, just tell us a little bit about yourself and your expertise, because I know we have so many experts on social media. Give
Yeah.
us how many Facebook friends you have. Since
Well,
that's what matters. But tell us about yourself as a doctor.
so I am a board certified otolaryngologist, head and neck surgeon, or ear, nose, and throat head and neck surgeon. I have been practicing here in Warren, Ohio for 20 years now. Believe it or not, I have been here
Wow.
for 20 years. As you said in the intro, my husband and I, we are not originally from here. We're East Coast folks. We are from New Jersey and the Philadelphia area. But I relocated here after residency to join the Lippy Group for Ear, Nose, and Throat, the esteemed, I should say, Lippy Group for Ear, Nose, and
Yes.
Throat. In 2001, I was recruited here by the owner and the founder, Dr. William Lippy. He has since retired some years ago, and now I co-own the Lippy Group for Ear, Nose, and Throat, as well as the Lippy Outpatient Surgery Center. So my practice primarily focuses on anything above the shoulders and between the brain, I say. So that's where my focus is. But my practice leans heavily on sinus, nasal allergies, head and neck tumors, thyroid, and I have a big pediatric population as well. So I am considered one of those frontline workers because when it comes to COVID, I'm all up in your respiratory system. That's what
Right.
I do every single day. So yep.
Well,
And
Wow.
as you said, I'm married, my husband Casey, and we have three girls that we have here that we're raising. Some pre-teens and preteens.
my first thought when you said that you co-own was Tides, but we're just ain't the show for Tides. So
Uh-oh. Listen,
this ain't the show for Tides.
I didn't say it. Pastor Jeff said it, and I didn't text him and tell him to say it. I'm telling you right now, I didn't text him and tell him.
Oh, that
I,
is
I,
hilarious.
Bruh,
that's
I
just
need you to
Let
put in a
me let me
word.
let me let
that's
me let me text Casey right now and say, Casey, did you get our ties set up
Bruh,
at Second Baptist?
he gonna be like, I
Let me
sent him a
text him
chicken
right
wing.
now.
I sent him a wing basket. That's what I did. So, so,
I,
so everything between the shoulder and the head.
Anything
So,
between the brain and the shoulders. Yeah,
so,
that's my
so if
that's my territory.
so, if Pastor Jeff runs into somebody who's talking out the side of their neck, he needs to refer them to you.
Refer them to me.
Refer them.
Refer them
Okay,
to
okay,
me.
well,
Yes,
gotcha.
yes, absolutely.
I had a real issue, and I still do. And although we had to do it, I had a real issue with the schools reopening, with the kids going back
Yeah,
to school.
yeah.
My son as well as Pastor Todd's son are both 11. They're at the age. I think it's 1 year. I think it's 12 years old where they're allowed to get vaccinated. And
Right.
so
Correct.
and I think, I don't know about you, Todd, but I think I've gotten 3 calls about people being having uh, having COVID at the school, at least teachers, that is. So, what do you feel about that? And and are there is there a? I heard there was a push to lower the age down to 11. What do you think about that?
For vaccination, you mean?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Yes, you are correct. Currently, right now, the vaccination, and it's a Pfizer vaccine that is available for children down to the age of 12. There's 3 vaccines here in the United States. There's the Pfizer vaccine, the Moderna vaccine, and these are 2-shot vaccines. And then you have the 1-shot JJ vaccine, Johnson and Johnson vaccine. It is only the Pfizer vaccine that's indicated for children down to the age of 12. My girls are 14, 12, and 10. My 2 oldest girls, as a matter of fact, today, my 2 oldest girls received their second vaccination. So in 2 weeks, they'll be considered fully vaccinated because it takes up to 2 weeks before the body starts to make those antibodies. So I do fear for my youngest daughter, who is 10. And she, in fact, came to me and said, Mommy, I'm really upset about the fact that I couldn't get vaccinated. But they
Wow.
are doing ongoing studies for children down to the age of 5. I do expect that we're going to hear some news about vaccination of kids below the age of 12 coming soon, and it can't come soon enough. But we will be hearing it. They are actually doing the research on those younger age children right now. So there are children below the age of 12 who are receiving the vaccination as part of this study. And that should be coming out soon, and they can, get that available to everyone nationwide for the kids.
Uh, I'm glad that Jeff started off with that particular subject because I just read an article just before, not even an hour or so before we got on, that some parents are falsifying their children's age at
To
to
get
get them
the
vaccinated. And
vaccine.
if they're old enough, if they're 10 or
Yeah,
11, meaning they could pass for 12,
sure.
many of the walk-in pharmacies and grocery stores are not asking for verification of the child. They
Right.
just, it's whatever the parent writes down. And so some are just doing that. Uh, you know,
Wow.
Well, what I would
what do
say
you think
is
about that?
I would certainly not advise that at all because the study reports have not come out yet. You know, do I think that it is going to be safe for children under 12, and that if you have parents who are going out there doing that now and falsifying their age so that they can get vaccinated, do I think that there's going to be a detrimental harm? My gut tells me no. However, as a physician, I would not advise that at all because you never know. You have to wait and see what the studies show. That's why it hasn't been released to those children under that age. So, but it's
Right.
coming soon. I just want to reassure people it's coming. It is coming soon. But listen, just for my family, praise Jesus, we've not had COVID hit this household, since it started, and I'm grateful for that. My husband and I are both vaccinated, as I said, my 2 oldest children. But we kept our children out on virtual school for the past 2 years because all 3 of our children have sickle cell trait. And even as a physician,
Mm,
even though I knew that that's really not going to harm them because it's never caused them any problems, the mom side of me and the dad side said, no, we're going to keep our kids home and we're going to keep them protected. So that's what we did. And our kids have not been sick during that whole entire time.
wow.
Well, we allowed our kids to go back to in school, and this is their second week back to school because the school system that they're in started after Labor Day. So the first week after they started on a Tuesday, the day after Labor Day, Friday, my middle child said, Mommy, my throat hurts.
Wow.
Saturday, she said, Mommy, she woke up. Mommy, I feel worse. My head hurts. My stomach hurts. My body aches. I'm just tired. I took her straight to urgent care. We had rapid COVID testing done, rapid strep testing done. Both came back negative, thankfully. I had them send the PCR test just to make sure. And 3 days later, we got that information that COVID was negative and everything. So she got better and she was able to go back to school. But I felt like we dodged a bullet here. I hate to say that phrase, but I felt like we dodged it because at that time she had only had one shot of the
Wow.
two
Wow.
vaccination. So she really technically was not fully vaccinated. So, but she's now feeling better. My fear is my youngest child. So we had my middle child until we knew the final results. She was quarantined in her bedroom. If she had to come out, she had a mask on. I instructed my youngest daughter to not be around her sister at all. Do not go in her room. Stay away until we knew the results because my youngest daughter is totally unprotected. As
Wow.
a matter of fact, tonight I received an email from the school system. As of tonight, the school system is now mandating masks for all students, teachers, and staff, whereas their school was not mandated mask at all when it started. So
And they resisted it
they
originally.
re- and
They
they are resisting it. Absolutely, absolutely.
right. And
Uh,
I feel bad. Go ahead, Pastor Jeff.
I was just going because I don't want to delve too far into that with the kids. I know we got a lot more to talk about, but I don't know if Dr. Farmer, we just had a baby, so my whole
Okay.
family, the whole household was stricken with COVID. And
Mm,
we were really scared for my two-month old
for the
son.
baby. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so when my wife called the hotline, and they said, "Well, does he breastfeed?" And they said the breastfeeding is really good for him because of the antibodies in it. But they said you might
Right.
as well not wear a mask around him. And I really didn't like that. I'm like, okay, I know we have to hold him, but they were saying he basically probably has it. Just what are your thoughts on that? I mean,
My thoughts are if you are COVID positive and you are in a household with someone who's not vaccinated, say because of a medical condition that prevents them from getting the vaccine or a child that's under the age of 12, you should wear a mask. That is my recommendation. You should wear a mask. And the best thing that you can do to protect your family who are not vaccinated is for you to get vaccinated and to encourage them to get vaccinated if they can and to wear a mask inside around them. That is my recommendation. It
amen.
is.
You know, speaking of vaccines and masks, the three, it appears, primary protective measures we can take is social distancing, which has been
Yeah.
promoted heavily, but honestly, I just think it's been totally abandoned by most
Hmm.
people. Social
Right. I
distancing,
agree. I agree.
wearing masks,
Hmm.
and getting vaccinated if you can. Let's
Yes.
start with masks and then move to the vaccines. Let's just answer it straight up from a physician standpoint. Do masks work?
Absolutely. Mask work, absolutely. And you cannot falsify the data. There is strong data out there to tell you that masks do work. And I can tell you just from a personal basis, just from what I'm observing, I already told you that my practice is head and neck. That's what I do. So I'm seeing patients with upper respiratory infections and colds and sinus infections and tonsillitis and ear infections and all of that. When I tell you that social distancing and mask in particular have affected my practice, it's kind of funny. I'm like, it's affected my practice in a negative way, in
Wow,
the
wow.
sense that I do not see the same number of patients for sinus infections and ear infections and tonsil infections. My numbers have gone down dramatically, and especially in school age kids. The number of surgeries that I'm doing for tonsillectomies, removing tonsils and adenoids in kids, and putting ear tubes in kids has dramatically gone down. And it's not just me, it's across the board when talking to my colleagues. And what is the reason for that? The reason is because of mask wearing. The reason is because of social distancing. The reason is because more kids were in virtual school and not around each other. So it absolutely works. And the other thing, I don't know if you were going to ask me this question, but I want to put it out there anyway.
Hmm.
Wearing a mask is not going to make you accumulate a large amount of CO2 or carbon dioxide in your
Thank you.
body to make you sick. If it did, then every single nurse, doctor, whatever who has been wearing masks for all of these years would be sick. Are there times when, now I'm going to keep it real and I'm going to be honest with you. and transparent. When I first had to start wearing that N95 mask, I mean the real N95 mask, where you have to actually go through the N95 test and make sure there's a whole test to be fitted for an N95 in the healthcare field. When I had to go through that test, and the very first time I wore that N95 mask in a surgery, I felt like I was going to go crazy. I wanted to get out. Like I can't do this. I felt like I was suffocating. I felt lightheaded. I felt like, oh my God, this is horrible. But it was because it was something I had to get used to. Now I don't feel that way at all. I wear N95s all of the time. But the average person walking around is not wearing that type of N95 mask at all, at all. But in general, and studies can prove this, no, it does not give you high levels of CO2. So you can wear a mask. You can. I think a lot of it, I don't want to say a lot of it is up here, but there are times where people have conditions where if they have a lung condition that inhibits their breathing, they may not be able to tolerate a mask like that. There are valid reasons, but in
Right.
general, no, that's a fallacy in that it increases the CO2 level to detrimental, dangerous levels in your
Right.
body just to wear a mask. And
No,
most
not
people aren't wearing masks 24/7.
right.
Right. So they're still breathing.
Not
Right. Right.
Right.
not to stick on this subject, but and you may not even know what masks have become a big money maker. Everybody making masks. Everybody and their mama making masks.
Right.
I'm about to make some. Dude.
You got Superman masks, Avengers masks.
Right.
And I
Right.
know you talk about M95s. Is there a mask that that may not work? And should we just buy masks from everybody who making them fashionable, and some of them
Yeah.
got that bedazzled mask?
Right,
Cable.
right. No, there are. You're absolutely correct. It is a money maker. It's an opportunity that people have jumped on. But I mean, in general, the very best mask to cut down on transmission would be an N95 or a K95, type of mask. But everybody does not have, it's not accessible to every single person. So if you are going to wear a mask or a DIY mask, the best kind of mask to wear is one that has multiple layers to it, and the weave of the fabric is very tight. If you can hold that mask up and you can see the light shining through it, you may as well not even wear a mask,
Okay.
because the viral particles are so small. Oh my gosh, that's another fallacy. That's another thing too. People who are anti-maskers say, there's no reason to wear a mask because the viral particle is so micro and so tiny, it can get through even the tightest weave of fabric. Well, guess what? You're right in that the virus is that small, but you have to remember the virus is within a respiratory droplet. What is being transmitted between people is not the actual individual virus. The virus is within respiratory droplets, which are bigger than the actual virus. So the mask is inhibiting those respiratory particles coming, those droplets coming into the mask. Is it 100%? No. But does it significantly cut down on the transmission? Absolutely, yes. So the worst masks are those that have a looser weave to them or a
Okay.
single layer to them. And also there was actually a study actually that showed that the gaiters, they call them, the gaiters that you
Uh-huh.
just pull up,
Mhm.
it showed that those were the least helpful, as well as
Oh wow. My boys
the
wear
the
those to school.
the
Yeah, yeah.
scarves, the
The
scarves
scarves. Yeah, the scarves, the bandanas.
those because the gators are, and it depends on the material of the gator. You got to look at that material. If it's a really thin material, which most gators are thin, you can actually see the impression of the person's face when they wear the gator. That's a thin material. That's not as protective as, say, a
Hmm.
thicker fabric gator that's been made. Okay.
Well, Shamika's sending the boys to school with new masks tomorrow because we were doing again. So would you agree that uh given the different effectiveness of different types of weave and like you said, the layers, that some face covering in most cases, going into a place where you're covering your nose and your mouth, they are beneficial than
Yes.
nothing at all?
Absolutely. If you don't have anything, take that scarf off your head and put it around your face. if you don't have anything else, and the
Yeah.
gaiters are convenient because you can push, squish it down like a scarf when you don't need it, and
Right.
you can just pull it right back up. So they're very convenient. It's just look at the fabric that the gaiter is made out of. And if it's very, very thin, consider getting one that is thicker, or changing the style.
Now, switching gears to protection from masks to vaccines,
Yes,
uh, which it's so funny watching how our nation has shifted even politically, given one president on one side of the aisle who took credit for fast tracking this thing, and he was a hero to a certain segment. And then when the
right,
next person takes over, it's suddenly they're killing you.
right,
Their Bill Gates is tracking you. All of these things are happening. I don't want to get into a bunch of trying to, what do you call, play whack-a-mole with conspiracy theories and stuff on. I just want to talk about the basic effectiveness of vaccines. We do have a question which you can just roll into your answer about natural immunity because you've already been infected
right,
versus being
right.
vaccinated. And just talk about, the main pushbacks that you hear, and we're going to talk about the religious thing in a second. So let's just talk the science thing, and then we'll
Sure,
get religiously incorrect in a few minutes. But vaccines are effective, and I did. We had a couple trolls that we had to delete because they were just being just ridiculous. But we did have one person stated a statistic with no sourcing, by the way,
sure.
of over 400,000 adverse events from COVID vaccines, including 9,000 deaths and 41,000 serious injuries since December 24, December 2020. And I've heard, well, if you got the vaccine, like my uncle got the vaccine and had a heart attack, 3 weeks later, and I'm like, yeah, and your uncle ate ribs every day for breakfast. Like,
Right,
don't
right.
forget that you still have the
Yeah,
rest of life. And I'm not being
yeah,
crass, but let's
right,
not pretend that people still die and will die regardless, of whether they are vaccinated with this vaccine or other medical
right,
treatments or not. I had a loved one going to for knee surgery and have a complication and never
right.
made it home. So let's just talk about the effectiveness. And no, Scott, it's not the mark of the beast. One of our viewers, it's not the mark of the beast to get vaccinated. But talk about effectiveness and safety of the
Right.
vaccine.
So we all know, we've heard the effectiveness of the vaccines, and all three of them are very effective. There's really been no other vaccine out there that is effective as the COVID-19, vaccination. We're talking in the 90 percentile of being effective versus, let's say, maybe the influenza vaccine, which most of us know about. It's very common, the flu vaccine, okay? I mean, we're talking a flu vaccine maybe being in the 60s, as far as effectiveness. And that's why when people get vaccinated with a flu vaccine, you can still get the flu, because it's not 100% effective. And when you get the COVID-19 vaccine, yes, you can still get infected because it's not 100%. Think about, if you have a population of 1 million people and it's 95% effective, you're still going to have a high number of people who still get infected. So I think also the media and social media blows up those people who are getting infected. Uh, that's the term that they use, is just a breakthrough infection when you've been fully vaccinated and then you get an infection. Well, we expect that there's going to be a number of people who still get infected with the vaccination. But if you look at compare the numbers of the amount of people who are unvaccinated and getting infected and vaccinated and infected, it's a drastic difference between the two here, drastic difference. And the other thing is, what we're seeing is that those people who are vaccinated, if they do get infected, the severity of their infections is not as severe as those who have been vaccinated. Have there been people who have actually died from COVID-19 that have been fully vaccinated? Yes, there have. Just like there are thousands and thousands and thousands of people who die from influenza every year who have been vaccinated. But we don't hear about them on TV, right?
Right.
You don't hear about that on TV. It's just not a thing. But because COVID-19 pandemic is current, it's the new thing, it's going on, we're going to hear about it all the time. We're going to hear about it. So when people say, oh, well, this person got infected and they were vaccinated, I'm like, okay. How'd they do? Oh, they did okay. They did fine. Well, that's the point, because
Right.
they were vaccinated. So the effectiveness of these vaccines is absolutely amazing compared to any of the other vaccines. And I think it's just the scientific technology behind the vaccines. It's so different. It's never been used before. It's absolutely amazing compared to the other vaccines.
Now Johnson and Johnson took a lot of hits, especially when this first came out. It was called the black vaccine. They wanted to give it to the black community.
The Jackson, the Jackson 5 vaccine.
And obviously for the reasons of the couple people who really got sick from it. And from what I hear, it was only women. Can you speak to that for a few seconds?
Yeah, what they were seeing were some unusual blood clots in women, and all of the people that were reported were in women. And I think they're still doing some research on why that was. And I think it was in April, if I'm not mistaken, that they actually put a halt on the JJ vaccination being administered. And then after they did some more investigating and everything, they finally determined that it was safe to restart giving the vaccination with JJ, and that the risk really, of getting the vaccination outweighed, all of the complications that were coming of it. And it wasn't a lot of complications at all. But if we really look at complications of vaccinations, we could see the same thing happen in, like I said, the flu vaccine. You could have complications after any vaccine. There were also, in addition to the blood clotting, there were some neurologic side effects. There's a condition called Guillain-Barre Syndrome, and that's a condition that affects your nerves. It can cause you to get paralysis and not be able to breathe on your own. It can be a very serious condition. And there were some of those reports, after the use of that vaccination as well. However, so has that been with other vaccinations. So it's not just COVID-19. Like you said, Pastor Todd, a family member of yours who had surgery, everything has a complication of it, and it doesn't matter what it is, there could be a complication. You can have a severe complication from just taking Tylenol. You can have a severe complication from any medication. When researchers and scientists look at the effectiveness and the safety of medications, and they do studies and clinical trials, they have to report every single side effect around that medication, every single side effect that a patient may have been having, regardless of whether it might really came from that medicine or not. There's some side effects that really came from that medicine. But if a study subject had something go wrong with them, like say somebody was in a study and they had a heart attack, well, maybe that heart attack had nothing to do with the drug they were taking. It was just because of their underlying diabetes or their underlying high blood pressure. But it has to be reported because it was during a study time. So that's really how things work. I get patients who come in and see me all the time for thyroid problems. They may come in with a thyroid nodule, right? The majority of patients that it was incidentally picked up. Maybe they had a car accident and they went into the hospital and had an x-ray of their neck and said, oh, by the way, you have thyroid nodules. Well, did that nodule come because I had a car accident? No, it's a coinky dink, I call it. It's a coinky dink. So there may be some negative things that happen after a COVID vaccination that did not directly come from the COVID vaccine, but because these are new vaccinations, it's going to get reported. And I think a lot of times it gets sensationalized, and that's what some of the anti-vaxxers kind of hold on to, just like for many years, those who there's a huge group, and we don't even want to go there about vaccines causing autism, but that really has been dismayed that that's not true. It's false, but again, it's kind of like that.
Now, I know Todd wants to get religiously incorrect, and I'm gonna let him get religious real quick. But real quick before we go there, the booster shots.
Yes.
I know I'm right around the time. I think I got like a couple months before I can get a booster. Can you talk to me about the booster? Is it the same thing? Do I have to still get the Moderna, or do I still, how does that work?
They're looking at that. They're looking at that because in the beginning, if you started with Moderna or Pfizer as your first shot, then it was recommended that you get your second shot, with the same the same vaccine. They're looking at whether there could be some cross vaccination, between Moderna and Pfizer, because they work in the same way using a messenger RNA. You would not be able to do the same thing at this point with JJ because it works in a different way than Pfizer and the Moderna vaccination. But there are studies looking at whether it's going to be safe to cross vaccinate with boosters. Think of the influenza shot. We get the flu shot every single year, right? Why do we get a flu shot every single year? Why can't you just get a flu shot once a year and be done with it, right? Well, the reason is because every single year it may not be the same type of virus that's causing influenza.
Mm.
There's hundreds of types of influenza, just like there's hundreds of types of coronavirus. There's variants, there's mutations. So every year, the smart people have to decide which variants do we think of influenza are going to be around this year, because that's what we need to put in the vaccine. And that's why you get a different influenza vaccine every single year. So I believe that eventually COVID may be one of those vaccinations that we get on a yearly basis. That's what I believe. I don't know that for sure yet, but that's what I'm thinking, because the virus has already shown to have mutated many, 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 many times. Right
Right.
now, the vaccines that we have are covering those mutations, but there may come a time that it's not going to cover the mutations.
Wow.
So they just approved the booster shot early on. A few months ago, it was approved for those who were immunocompromised or those who were having organ transplantation. They just recently, like a week ago, approved it for those who are 65 and older, because they are the more susceptible population. It is not approved yet for those under 65, although I'm going to tell you, I'm sure that there are those who were under 65 who did get a booster shot already. There are, I'm sure there are places who are already given the booster shots. But I think it's going to be recommended that everyone gets a booster shot at some point in time. And I think people need to think about it kind of like the influenza shot, that it's trying to cover for those different mutations. When the scientists created the vaccinations, they knew that this virus was going to mutate. We know that as in the medical field, as scientists, we know that viruses are going to mutate. So they did put some leeway in those vaccines to try to cover for possible mutations. And that's why the vaccines that we currently have do cover. So far, it's showing that it's covering for these variants. But I think there's variants coming that's going to be iffy. It's going to be iffy.
Thank you. I want to do a couple quick hits that are still along the science track, and you can just do quick hit explanations. This one to be real
Okay.
easy. You can just say yes or no. Are,
Okay.
are those are those plastic shields any good to anybody? I've seen people just put on a little headband with a shield or a bedazzle,
Oh,
that little
that's
fogger, that little
well, that falls
stormtrooper looking
right.
thing.
That falls into the category of, if you don't have anything, then put something on. It falls into that category, okay?
Okay.
But in general, no. Again, the respiratory droplets are so small. Just think about standing in front of somebody with that type of a shield on, and then they just sneeze directly in your face. Having that shield on is going to protect you, right? It is going to protect you, that it may not go directly on you, but there are going to be some little respiratory particles that fall on you at some point in time, right? So they're oh, if you don't have anything else to wear, then put that on. But
Well, that's
no,
why we call the first few pews at Second Baptist the splash zone,
right.
like a SeaWorld, like a SeaWorld.
I love it. I love it.
Splash
I love
Keep
it.
your distance if you don't want none of this.
I love it. Exactly. There you go. And even if you don't sit in the splash zone, I love that analogy, Pastor.
Yeah,
Even if you're not sitting in the splash zone, right? Like at SeaWorld, even if you're a few aisles back,
those droplets, you can almost feel them in the air.
you
You can,
still get a droplet on you, right? That's a
right.
great analogy. I'm stealing that. I'm using that
Take
one.
it, take it. Uh, Big Mike, producer, asked, it's been said that most of the people who die are the ones who have serious problems or are unhealthy or obese. And of course, elderly. We all know elderly. Is
Yeah.
that true? Is that still the majority of deaths? People that have other underlying issues, obese?
Right. Of course, those people who have underlying medical conditions are more susceptible of not only getting the virus, but also having more detrimental and severe side effects and symptoms from it, including death. So overwhelmingly, we were seeing with the original variant, deaths in those who have underlying medical conditions. And we're still seeing that today, even with the Delta variant. The Delta variant is the majority of those cases, that are being picked up with COVID. However, with the Delta variant, because it is much more contagious, it is much more transmissible, we are seeing people who are much younger and healthier having more serious complications and even death from COVID-19 because of this variant right now. So I think there is a little bit of a shift in what that person who's most susceptible looks like. But yes, underlying medical conditions is still a very top one. But we have to remember we're dealing with a whole different, not a whole different, it's a variant, but we're dealing with a variant that is very, very, very bad, very bad. And that's why it's infecting even our younger people. And that's why you are seeing a spike in hospitalizations in children in pediatric hospitals that they've never seen before because of this Delta variant. Yeah.
Wow.
Now we see a lot of people, and I've seen it, heard it. A lot of people are selling and buying the immunization papers, just to say that they are immunized. How is there going to be a push for them to be on the license? I've heard of that.
Yeah, so I've heard about this, vaccine passport, and I'm gonna be honest, I'm a little scared about it. I really am. I will tell you that in all honesty, I'm not 100% for it, for this vaccine passport. But I do think that you're gonna have people out there who do that, who buy fake vaccination cards. And I think that it's horrible, because it's a danger to other people who are around you to falsely say that you're vaccinated. But on the other hand, guess what? You have people out here who are on the honor system, whether they got vaccinated or not. And they can say they got vaccinated and they didn't, whether they have a card or not. It's just
Mhm.
that being able to show proof of something to maybe get into a museum or get into a restaurant. Did you see about the story in New York recently, and the hostess got attacked, from
For
some women from
asking.
Texas
Yeah, for asking.
because
Yeah.
for asking for proof of
Wow.
vaccination. So it is coming, but I that may be a whole nother religiously incorrect podcast
Yeah.
to talk about the vaccine passport. But I'm not 100% for it at all.
I want to tie together two themes, and obviously the podcast being religiously incorrect, and as pastors, we have been a part. I know Pastor Jeff and I and many other pastors have been a part of messaging that we believe that vaccines are helpful and beneficial and should be treated like
Yes,
any other medical remedy. You don't want to talk down or dumb to people, but
right.
sometimes you are frustrated that people who have the polio vaccine, people who have
Hmm.
put their children through school, and we all had to get 11 and 12 different vaccines to stay in
Right.
school. One of my uncles, matter of fact, I call him Uncle Edgar, goes to Pastor Jeff's church. He said, "Hey, when me and your pops went to the army, they pumped us up with a little bit of everything
Oh
Yep.
my
to
God.
go overseas, and you just bend over and take it, and we didn't ask any questions." Now, I know we live in an age of skepticism, but I kind of want
Yeah.
to tie these two themes together, and that is this over reliance, especially in our community, on religion and using religious uh, reasonings for not getting the vaccine. Some real, and quite frankly, some are just being used as a buffer to say that I have a
Yeah.
legitimate reason. And the other part, though, is overall anti-intellectualism. We
Yeah.
have all these advancements. And I'll just say in the Black community, we say go to school, get your degree. We need more Black doctors, and now we
Right.
have a Black doctor,
Right.
and even how it feels to be at the low end of the medical totem pole. You're not the CDC, you're not the
Right.
FDA, you're not the big Black government entity, the dark web or whatever they call it. Like you're in some cabal, and you're saying I'm saying the same thing, and you see it not
Yeah.
being believed. How does that make you feel? And it's okay to give a personal answer as opposed to a statistical answer. But
Right.
when you see that, what is your answer to that? And how does that make you feel even personally as a doctor, as a Black woman, as a Christian?
Right. It's very frustrating. And I think the healthcare field is getting overwhelmed and frustrated because here we go again. We're back to where we were before, mostly because of people who don't want to get vaccinated or who are against masking. And you're starting to see some in the health field rebelling and saying that I'm not going to take care of patients, anymore if they haven't been vaccinated. I have a problem with that. I do, because if you can discriminate against somebody who's not vaccinated, then what makes you not want to discriminate against somebody who may be of a certain shade or color, So
Right.
we have to be careful. We have to be very careful with that. But I can understand, their frustration. I can absolutely, being in the medical field, understand their frustration. I think where we have to do, and I'm sure you do this as pastors, you have to meet people where they are. You can't berate them. You can't, like you said, talk down to them. You have to simply ask them, hey, let's talk about where your hang up is. Just had a conversation with someone the other day about where's your hang up, when it comes to vaccination. I want to try to help you understand, and find out what it is. And oftentimes you find out that it was something that you easily just said, well, no, that's not correct. It's this. And they're like, oh, well, I didn't know that, you know? And then to say, how can I help you? Let me help you see how you can get vaccinated. Now that we've cleared up that, let me see how we can help get you vaccinated. But let me be clear. There's going to be some that it doesn't matter. You can talk to your blue in your face. They're not going to do it. They're just not going to do it, at all. But I think the worst thing we can do is to berate somebody and to down someone for making that decision not to get vaccinated. But I, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's definitely hard. It's hard being in this field and having to walk in and know I got to take care of this patient who decided not to get vaccinated. And some people say, well, it's like taking care of somebody with lung cancer who decided to smoke, or somebody who decided to OD on drugs and now I got to try to save their life. It's a decision that they made. But the difference here is that you making a decision not to get vaccinated is not only affecting your life, but it's affecting everybody else around you. And I just don't think that you should do that. You don't have the privilege to affect somebody else's life, in doing that. When it comes to cigarette smoking, it does affect you, but it can affect those around that you're exposed to. And guess what? That's why we have mandates, and that's why we have rules and restrictions where you can't smoke in certain places. You can't smoke on airplanes anymore. You can't do that. That's why we have those restrictions, because it can harm somebody else. So why not get a vaccination that we know can not only protect you, but can protect those around you as well?
Wow. Pastor
Amen.
Jeff.
I just want to say I applaud you all for all that you all are doing in the medical field. I know it's difficult. You all are learning as you go. I know when I first got when my wife first got pregnant, they said she didn't know if she could even take it. So now they're saying she
Right,
could. When I first got the
right,
test, they said the thing had to go all the way up your nose to your brain, because they had to test your brain. I'm like, what's going on here? And that's the scary thing. But people don't want to.
Right.
I don't want you doing that. And now
They in your
now they
frontal
just
lobe. Right.
right. But
and
I
now
think
they just do it for
ha-
15 seconds.
right. What people have to remember is that this is very fluid. We're dealing with something that we've never dealt with before.
Right.
So things are going to be changed. The recommendations that were made in the beginning are not the recommendations that are being made now. We have to remember that. And maybe a month from now, something may be different because we're learning new things about this virus. So people have to understand that. And maybe something was said by the CDC at this time, and now it's said differently. And that has made people not trust the CDC.
Right.
But if you just remember, these are changing times. This is a changing virus, and we have to keep up with it and we have to adjust. We just have to adjust, and do the best that we can with it.
I think people forget that, science is an evolving field that
Right,
is, and we're always learning more and discovering more. Matter of fact, most fields are that way.
right,
Heck, you can read theology books, and because of archaeological finds and language
Right.
discoveries, you have different understanding of maybe the origin of a book or how. I was just reading something. I know Jeff's in school as well, And
Right.
the lack of patience and grace and understanding, and
Right.
and again, I hate to use that word again, but anti-intellectualism, or in the case of many Christians and church folk, the need to try to apply scriptures where they really are not, to try to call this, whether it's mark of the beast, end times. And I see the comment, I know this brother, it's population control. This is in Revelation. This was going to happen. This is the pale horse. I'm not even being funny, but that's actually baloney from a theological standpoint. I'm just saying, as a pastor, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but at a certain point, it's actually biblical to just shut down and slap down bad talk and bad teaching right where it stands, quite frankly. And people think it's not gracious, but actually it's probably saving someone's life, because there have been people who, that's how cults start, thinking that the end of the world is
Right.
coming. That's how people resort to extreme behaviors and get away from simply living the Christian life and sharing the gospel, is by trying to make every new thing. I grew up when Jesus was coming back every other week, and we were scared
Right.
every other night, and watch the news and all this stuff. You know, I'm pretty sure if Jesus wanted to do something in our world, he does not need a virus. He does not need a vaccine. He does not need masks and all these human tools, because he's God.
Right.
But it does frustrate me that people are relying solely on faith, especially just in this situation. They've
Right.
been through surgery after surgery, procedure after procedure, take a bucket full of pills
Right.
and still pray to God. But when it comes to this,
They say, my God got me covered.
God got me. And let me tell you something, Pastor Jeff, I and every preacher in this country has preached more than enough funerals of people who God didn't have you covered.
Right.
God didn't have
There
you
you go.
covered. He sent the vaccine, just like he sent you Tylenol, just like your doctor tell you to stop eating so much salt,
Right.
and just like they tell you to lay off on the sugar and da 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 da. He gave you that. He gave us intelligence, and I hate to see religion wielded, faith
Yeah.
wielded as an excuse, and oftentimes an insincere one. I got folk that ain't been to church in 10 years talking about God told me, like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Since when? Where
And that,
you got a new pastor I don't know about? What is this?
and they especially ain't tithing, Pastor. They
Ain't
ain't
tithing
tithing.
either. Not a wang, not a nothing. No, but I mean, my father fixed cars. And there have been times when I would have the nerve as a young man, and I would say, that's leaking, and it's leaking, and he would look at it, see the color of it, and say, oh, that's antifreeze, or that's such and such. And I would say to him, you sure about that? And he would say, boy, I've been working on this for 40 years. I know
Right.
cars.
Right.
You know music, you know technology, you know this. If I want to ask you about computers, I'll ask you. But if you
Right.
want to know about cars, but it seems like we have denied the expertise that we have in our own community, and we will
Right.
believe memes and conspiracies and unfounded numbers. Everybody has an uncle's cousin's brother who got the vaccine and fell out in the doctor's office, and we don't know who they are or what their names are, but everybody claims to know somebody. And even
Right.
if, like you said, if there is a case, they're often exaggerated to prove a point. And so
Right.
what would you recommend that people like myself, Pastor Jeff, and those that, like you said, we know don't talk down, are there sources we can count on and resources we can lean on to help refute some of these? And they are frankly crazy
Right.
sometimes, especially the religious stuff. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, you absolutely, the CDC is there. CDC.gov is there for you to go to as a source of information. It is updated regularly. I go to it very often because you'll see it'll tell you that it's updated, because what may have been on it 2 months ago, there may be some updates because of changes. So cdc.gov is a great resource to go to. Also, whatever state you're in, that state health department has a website, and you can go to their website to get up to date information, as well as on the numbers in your actual state, because there may be mandates that your state has that are different from another state. So depending on
Right.
what state you're in, you should go to that. You should also go to your family doctor. I'm not saying all primary care doctors are for the vaccine, because believe it or not, they're not. And that's one thing that's frustrating to me, is that
Wow.
people in the medical field are not every single person is not taking the vaccine, and that we have nurses and doctors who have decided not to take the vaccine, that blows my mind.
So what's their reasoning? What are they saying?
That one of the main reasons, some of the reasons are because it's been too soon, and this vaccination has just been too quick, to come out. But again,
Right.
even being in the medical field, you have to understand, like, come on here. The vaccination, the science behind these vaccines did not just start. This has been in the works for years. Scientists are always, developing the better. It's just like what you said, Pastor Todd, and the same thing for me in the field of medicine. When I started 20 years ago, I did sinus surgery in a totally different way than I do sinus surgery now,
Wow.
because of the new instruments that have been developed, the new techniques that have been developed, to make it safer. So it's not that I'm doing something weird or strange. These are the advancements that we have in medicine. Remember, there was a time when no one ever knew about penicillin. Okay.
Right.
So, we have to remember this. So, we just, it's so frustrating to me sometimes, even for those in the medical field who are not taking the vaccine. But in general, you should be able to go to your primary care provider to get information that is reliable and resourceful information, versus going on Google. I call them Dr. Googles,
Dr.
going
Googles.
on, instead of being Dr. Google and going in Google, because you never know what site is really true or not. I have people who send me stuff all the time, and I'll say, what was the source of that? Like, what was the news outlet? What was the source? Because there are going to be some that lean towards conspiracy. So if somebody sends me something from a source that leans towards conspiracy, okay, I don't put much weight in that, at all. So, but the CDC.gov, your state health department website, your primary care physician, these are good sources to go to get accurate information. And that's why it's been important for me to do Zoom symposiums and Zoom calls, to get the information, out there. It's very important to me that people have the correct information that they can go on. So that's why it's important we need to have more talks like this, about COVID, especially for our people in this community.
Right.
I thank God for the African American doctors like yourself,
Yeah,
Dr.
Absolutely.
Papers, my cousin, Dr. David Davis.
Yep.
He
yeah,
called us
yeah,
all. So
yeah, yeah,
all y'all getting y'all shots. All y'all, everybody in
exactly.
the
Yep.
family.
Yeah, I know that's right.
All of you all, and we have examples like you all who are out there, on the front line doing it. So we want to say thank you.
Yes,
It's a
thank you.
shame.
Thank you.
It's a shame the era that we live in. And Scott, one of our loyal viewers, put up a post, a comment that said .gov, and gov is what people don't trust.
Yeah,
And unfortunately, that's not an unearned reality.
yeah,
When I talk about church, and like, hey, if you've
I
been
know.
mistreated in church, I get it. Like, I can't even be mad at you if you told me you had a bad experience, because you probably did. And it feels like we are in a sort of
But
an anti-establishment era, and some of
this
that
is
has been earned. But what do you
yeah,
feel about that? The
it
distrust
is
situation.
it is. I get it, and we could go and talk about the past administration and how I really think if there were a different administration in place, and I'm going to say this, and I hold to this. If there were a different administration in place when COVID came around, we would not have the number of deaths that we have now. I just truly believe that. I truly do.
Mm.
Because just the way it was dealt with, and
Right.
it really has put a sense of, doubt about government,
But does
at
the
all.
division make it any
But
better? Because then you got half the country that doesn't trust
it
the
it
other
doesn't
half.
it doesn't make it better. But what I say is, get past the quote unquote government. Get past who you see on the TV, the president, and even our current president. Get past that. Just kind of close your eyes and get past that. Think about those scientists who are in those labs, who have dedicated their lives to
Right.
science.
Yeah.
Okay. They're not in the labs dealing with this and this and this. They're trying to develop something that is going to save lives. Think about that, to try to get past all the politics and the conspiracies here. Yes, they're being pulled and pushed from politics and this and that, and you got to be careful what you say and this and this. But think about those scientists as they're standing in those labs late hours at nights, coming up with the best technology and the best vaccines to fight this COVID-19, pandemic. Think about those people. And not just the scientists. I'm talking about everything, all of the
Oh yeah.
ancillary, everything that goes into making that vaccine. Think about those people. They're not the conspiracy. They're just trying to help you. They're just trying to help
Right.
us.
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying that. I have a dear friend I graduated with who works for the CDC, and the frustration she expresses
Yeah.
of, like, yes, government entities of all types. I don't care if it's the IRS or whoever. We had a reason to be mad at the government all the time. She said, but we are
Right.
all normal, regular people like you
Right.
who want to
Right.
live. And I don't know what dark Dr. Evil table y'all think we sitting around to try to figure out a way to kill half the country. They really are
Right.
regular people. And I
Right.
know, I think honestly, and I think Jeff can attest to this, we are living in a generation where it makes for a good excuse to blame some dark force for
Yes.
everything, as opposed to wrestling with the messy practical realities of
Right.
life, that
Mhm.
and a variety. Let's just be honest, we see it in the Black community all the time. We still blaming.
Yeah.
There can be real systemic issues that we all fight and advocate for, but that doesn't change the way you choose to raise your household and your children. And every
Right.
time Pookie gets in trouble, it's not because the government's trying to put him down. It's because
Right.
maybe your values weren't aligned correctly and you allowed things to get out of place. So now he's where he is. Yeah, there's a jail for him to go to, but the government didn't drag him there out of his bed. And
Right.
I think that we're sort of absolving ourselves of personal responsibility and critical thinking by
Mhm.
constantly attributing everything to either some wild religious source or some wild government source. And everybody's working. I mean, we've been told the preachers are being paid off to tell
Right.
us to do this, and how
Oh,
much
I've
money
been
you
told
get to
that
say
too.
that? Yeah, how much
Oh,
money
I've
you
been
get to
told
say
that
that?
too. Oh, you're
I'm
being
like,
paid. You're being paid to say this as a doctor.
not enough to
There's
buy some oodles and noodles. That's all
Yeah,
I got. What do
right.
you?
I mean, there's a conspiracy that doctors are actually being paid. I mean, there's a
Yeah,
conspiracy
you were
about
paid
that as
to write
well.
down COVID
There is.
on birth certificates and
There
all of these.
listen,
Yeah,
listen, as Black people, we have a reason. There's a reason for us to distrust. We have a
uh,
long history of distrust of the government when it comes to science and experiments and vaccinations and shots and everything. The most common prominent thing is the Tuskegee, experiments. We know
mhm.
that there's a reason for us to distrust. But I can tell you, these vaccines are safe, they are effective, and I'll never forget this. My grandmother passed away in July, 90 years old, 2 weeks after her birthday. She passed away. My grandmother got vaccinated. As soon as those vaccines were available, my grandmother was vaccinated. And I had a conversation with my grandmother, and I asked her, I said, Grandma, you're 90 years old now. Like, what made you trust the vaccine, and what made you, because you lived through all of that 90 years of life, you lived through a lot, of what has happened to Black people unfairly and experiments on Black people. And she said to me, she said, Tony, she said, listen, this vaccine ain't just killing Black folk, it's killing
Mm.
white folk too. And so she said, listen, if they wanted to kill us Black folk off, they wouldn't be killing themselves off too. So I'm getting the
Amen.
vaccine,
Brother, listen,
and
that's that
so
wisdom. See, that's that wisdom you got to get from
yeah,
grandma. That's that wisdom.
yeah.
And
And that's why
whenever
I asked her.
she say listen,
Right.
whenever
It's
she
about
say
to be
listen,
something. It's about to be something. Listen, honey child. Listen,
Right.
listen, child.
Exactly. And she said that. She said, we got reason to mistrust. We do. She said, we do. But when it comes to this virus, we ain't the only ones that are getting the vaccine. She said, the white people, they lining up quicker than we are to get the vaccine.
Right,
You know?
right.
So
Well, we
that's
don't
that's what
mistrust them tax return checks. I know that. We don't
right.
mistrust we didn't mistrust that stimulus. We trusted that real good.
that
Right?
money on the 15th.
Right, right. Normally
Right.
we bring in Big Mike at the end, but he's out of commission on the video side of things.
Ah,
But Dr. Farmer, we thank you so very much
Thank
for lending
oh,
to
you, man.
thank
us
you so much.
your
Phenomenal.
expertise and your passion and all that you do for the community, because you are on the front lines with this.
Yeah.
And as Big Mike, he just commented, so he wants us to touch on that being so fast. And I want to touch on that. He says, I think a lot of people were afraid of the vaccine because it was available so fast. Can you talk
Right.
about that? I want to say it real quick before you say it medically.
Mhm.
Number one, it's been stated that, as you said already, it was a technology already in the works that could
Already.
be applied to multiple types of potential
Yep.
viruses that it could help. And of course, when we got that strain, they
Right.
started molding it in that direction, almost programming it in that direction. But also, when you are in an emergency, you work at emergency speed. In the
Right.
same way,
Absolutely.
a ambulance in a fire truck and a
Right.
police car headed to an emergency does not drive the same speed as everything else. And just to use the analogy a step further, oftentimes everything else stops so that they can get to where they need
Right.
to get to faster. And I think a lot of that did happen, that things that would have taken, and perhaps what some people should be questioning, is the bureaucracy that is put in for good reason with safeguards and all, that might have stopped some other things from coming to fruition
Right.
faster. But there is a need for this. And like any other emergency, you measure the risk against the reward and what
Right.
it's meant to do. Every ambulance could get in a wreck on its way somewhere every single time, but they decide it's worth it to try to get that patient to the
Right.
hospital as quickly as possible. So that was my take.
Yeah.
If you want to give your take on
No, and
coming
you're
too fast.
I can say absolutely ditto to what you said, and that's why it was emergency use, at the time, because this pandemic was an emergency, killing the number of people that it was killing. Usually when trials and studies are out for new drugs, you'll have a clinical study that might have a few thousand people in it, maybe 2 or 3,000 people in the study, and you're trying to get people in the study, and there's steps and stages you have to take till you can get to the final approval from the FDA. With the COVID vaccines, we were looking at tens of thousands of people who were enrolled in these studies, tens
Mm,
of thousands enrolled in the studies. So we had large numbers to go by to show the efficacy and the safety of these vaccines to allow the FDA to approve it for emergency use. I know Pfizer right now is the only one that has actually been FDA approved, not just emergency, but the other ones are going to come along. I think it's just technicality. It's just the bureaucracy. It's going to come where they are, because some people held on to that. Well, I ain't getting the vaccine until the FDA approves it. Well, guess
uh-huh.
what? I bet you take this, and this, and you pop any little vitamin, you pop any little
Listen,
diet pill in your
you
mouth,
drink
you
you
pop
drink stuff from the
anything,
bar. You
right?
take weed from people you don't know what it
And it
is. You
and it
got
exactly, but you take it, so that's the frustrating part of it. So
yeah.
you're absolutely correct, Pastor. There's hundreds of coronaviruses, and scientists have been studying these coronaviruses for many, many, many years. So messenger RNA technology is nothing new. It is not anything new. They have been using messenger RNA to try to combat these viruses. It is just that it's the first vaccine that uses this technology, but it's not a new technology at all.
Wow.
So the best thing, the amazing thing, the thing that we should be shouting from the rooftops is that thank you, Jesus, that this was already here for us. So when COVID-19 came around,
Right.
we
We
had a
had something.
vaccine within months. We had something because we were already on top of it. So I,
Right.
I, I hope that helps. Exactly what
Which
you said. This is not
which speaks
anything
to
new.
research, which speaks to
Right,
paying for research and making sure people can continue to be
right.
funded to do meaningful research in these areas. I want to thank our sponsor before we go. We always do our third sponsor from the Phillips Care family of businesses, Phillips Care Training, who are the proud new owners of High Street Fitness at 277 South High Street in Cortland. This is not Fernando. This is Mike Phillips, former football stud and good friend of our families and a friend to everybody in Warren. If you want to get your body right for, what are we working on now, Jeff? Thanksgiving? If you want to get your
Halloween.
Halloween, if you want to get your Halloween body right,
Halloween.
if you want to get your trunk or treat, if you want to get your treat in the trunk, Go see Mike.
Oh my gosh, I love that one. He gonna
Listen,
use that. He gonna
yeah,
use that on a
yes.
flyer.
Yeah, that's right. Get your treats in the trunk with Mike Phillips. He is a great trainer. He does a phenomenal job. They're always running specials. Be happy to take you as clients. Make sure you tell them that Religiously Incorrect Podcast sent you. Thank you again, Dr. Tonia Farmer. We are going to have you back. Let me make sure we don't have any more production notes. And we are always looking for sponsors. Dr. Farmer and the Lifty Group, we're always looking for sponsors.
I was about to ask you. I was like, I need to find out how to be a sponsor.
Listen, y'all could be a sponsor.
Yes.
Big Mike will hit you up. And the Lippy Group is more than welcome to tithe, the Second Baptist Church.
I can't stand it.
Oh, my goodness. We take corporate. Remember, corporations are people. Remember, the Supreme Court decided years ago that corporations are people. So Hobby Lobby, all y'all can start tithing to Second Baptist.
I'm getting off the phone. I'm going to go have a conversation with Casey.
Listen, he's going to blow my phone up tomorrow and have me writing like 5 proposals for the business. That's what's going to happen. Listen, Jeff, I'm going to give Jeff the last word. We're going to sign off. We went a little over time, but this was necessary and needful. Thank you. Everybody give it up for Dr. Farmer right now online.
Please.
I see your hands. Thank you so much. Go ahead, Pastor Jeff.
Thank you all for joining us. It was a phenomenal show. Thank you again. You and your husband are phenomenal assets to our community. We thank God you all are over at Second Baptist Church and a black church, and we are just so proud of what you all are doing in our community. We thank you so much. Listen, I feel like you were talking about me, Todd, when you was talking about we smoke any type of weed. It's for my glaucoma, man.
Listen, not your glaucoma. You got to see them scriptures, Doc. You got to see them. You got to see that fine print. Y'all take care. We'll see you next time. Stay on, Dr. Farmer. Stay on for a quick second. Hey, y'all, we'll see you next week, Sunday night service, 8 p.m. Take care.